I never believed in ghosts. Not really. Not until I visited the Hollow Grove Cemetery last October. It was supposed to be a simple errand, a favor for my grandmother who couldn't walk much anymore. Just place flowers on my great-uncle's grave, snap a photo, and be home before dark. I should have known better. Nothing about Hollow Grove was ever simple. The cemetery sat at the edge of town, tucked between hills like a forgotten scar. Locals always spoke of it in lowered voices, and kids dared each other to touch its rusted gate on Halloween. But I was 27, a skeptic, and had more concern for potholes than poltergeists. It was overcast when I arrived, the sky smeared with gray. Wind stirred the trees, making them whisper secrets to each other. I parked outside the old iron gate, the hinges groaning as I pushed through. The gravel crunched underfoot as I stepped into the graveyard. I had the bouquet in hand, lilies, my grandma's favorite, and my phone ready to snap a picture. The grave wasn't far. Row 12, plot 8, just past the old mausoleum. As I passed the stone building, I paused. It loomed like a bunker, stained with moss and time. The name above the door was nearly illegible, but the carvings, a pair of weeping angels, still clung to the archway. One was missing a face. I shivered, blaming the wind. Row 12 wasn't hard to find, but plot 8 was missing. I scanned the graves. Plot 6, 7, then 9. An empty patch of dirt lay where 8 should have been. No headstone, just overgrown weeds and an oddly shaped mound like something had recently been disturbed. I bent down to clear some ivy. The soil felt soft, too soft, and there was something jutting from it. Stone. I pulled at the creeping vines and found a cracked headstone, almost fully buried. The name was weathered, barely legible, Thomas Ellery. That was my great-uncle. What the hell happened to his grave? I snapped a photo and texted it to my grandma, asking if the plot had ever been moved or changed. While waiting for a reply, I noticed something strange. The temperature had dropped. My breath fogged in the air, and the wind, which had been rustling through the trees moments ago, had stopped entirely. Dead silence. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint, dry like dead leaves, scraping across stone. Help! I froze, my eyes darting across the rows of gravestones. There was no one in sight, just still trees and silent statues. Please, help! It came again, barely audible, but undeniably real. I took a step back from the grave, the bouquet now crushed in my clenched fist. The phone in my other hand buzzed. My grandma had replied, "No, that's always been the spot." Why? I didn't know how to answer. Should I tell her the headstone was buried? That someone or something had tampered with the grave? That I was hearing voices? Before I could respond, the wind picked up again, sudden and sharp, carrying with the scent of rotting earth. A crow burst from a nearby tree and startled me so badly I stumbled backward, nearly landing on another grave. I decided to get the hell out of there. But when I turned around, the path was different. The rows of graves were no longer neat. The markers, one straight, now leaned at odd angles. Some were cracked down the middle. Others had names I didn't recognize, even though I had passed them moments earlier. The mausoleum was gone, or at least, it wasn't where it should have been. Panic bubbled in my chest. I tried to retrace my steps, moving fast, heart pounding. The wind screamed through the trees now, and every gust seemed to carry another whisper. Turn back. Don't leave him. You dug too deep. The headstone. I turned on instinct and saw the disturbed grave again. The ivy that had covered the stone was now fully pulled away, as if someone or something had yanked it off in my absence. There was a fresh crack in the stone, a long, jagged line splitting the name in two. The soil beneath it was sinking, and then the ground moved. At first, I thought it was just settling, but no, it shifted. Something beneath the earth was pushing up. My legs refused to move, my body locked in place as fingers, skeletal, gray dirt cake, broke through the surface. A hand clawed out of the grave. That was all it took to finally unstick my legs. I ran. No plan, no sense of direction. Just pure animal panic. Trees blurred past me, their branches like reaching arms. Every breath burned. Every footstep crunched something brittle. Twigs, leaves, bones? The cemetery had grown, or changed, or warped. I didn't know which, but the gates were nowhere in sight, and the whispers were getting louder. They didn't come from one direction. They came from everywhere, from under the graves, from inside the crypts, from the trees themselves. I tripped over a root and crashed hard on the ground, my phone flying out of my hand, and landed with a crack against a nearby headstone. The screen flickered and died. That's when I saw the girl. She stood near a broken angel statue, barefoot, wearing a faded white dress that clung to her like damp fabric. Her hair hung in wet, matted clumps. Her eyes were too wide, too dark. She didn't blink. "Are you here to help?" she asked. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. She tilted her head, bird-like, then stepped closer. "He's angry." "You uncovered his name." I swallowed. "W, what do you mean?" She pointed toward the direction I had come. "He was meant to be forgotten. Now he knows." "Knows what?" But before I could ask, the air around us dropped again. I could see my breath, dense clouds in the cold. The girl flinched. Her skin began to crack, literally crack, like porcelain left too long in ice. "You need to hide," she hissed. "He's waking up." "Who?" She didn't answer. She screamed, and then she shattered. Her body broke into pieces, crumbling to the ground like chalk. And behind where she had stood, something rose, not from the earth, but from shadow, like smoke given shape. A figure tall and thin, with limbs too long and a face too smooth. No eyes, no mouth, just a slight, gaping dent where features should be. It stepped forward. I ran again, zigzagging between graves, no longer caring which way led out. I heard the thing moving fast. It didn't walk. It slid like mist would mass. Grabbing my dead phone, I ducked behind a large tombstone and tried to control my breath. My heart hammered so loudly I thought it might give me away. Then I heard it breathing, right beside me. Shallow, wet, like lungs filled with mud. I turned slowly and saw nothing. The air shimmered. The thing was right there, invisible except for the indent it made in the grass, as if reality itself bent around it. Then it spoke, in my great-uncle's voice. "You shouldn't have come." I bolted, screaming this time, blind to everything but my need to leave. Branches whipped my face. Stones cut my hands. But I didn't stop until I hit the gate. It was there, finally, bent and rusted, but real. I threw it open and stumbled out onto the road, collapsing beside my car. I don't remember starting the engine. I just remember the cemetery shrinking in the rear-view mirror and something dark watching from between the trees. Epilogue. It's been months. I haven't gone back. I tried to tell my grandma what I saw, but she just smiled sadly and said, "You saw him, didn't you?" Thomas never rested. She died a week later. I found her journal hidden in a drawer, pages filled with drawings of the creature, of the grave, of the girl. She wrote that Thomas Ellery was a cruel man, a murderer in life, buried in secret to keep his crimes quiet. The family never marked his grave properly. They hoped he'd be forgotten. But I found him, and now he's not alone anymore. I still hear the whispers, sometimes, at night, in the walls, in the dirt beneath my floorboards. He's not done with me. I uncovered the past, and the past is hungry. At its heart, this is a story about forgotten sins. The narrator's great-uncle Thomas Ellery was buried improperly, literally and morally. The family hoped by covering up his crimes, they could bury the consequences too. But guilt is like a weed. It grows back. There's a subtle generational theme here as well. The narrator, young and disconnected from their family's dark history, thinks they're just doing a good deed, but their very innocence becomes a catalyst for destruction. They uncover something they were never supposed to see. This ties into a lot of folklore across cultures. In Japanese onryo tales, vengeful spirits often return because of dishonor or unfinished business. In Irish mythology, you have the banshee, who haunts families with cursed legacies. Even in modern urban legends, like the story of El Silban in Venezuela, A wronged soul returns because the living fail to respect or remember the truth. This isn't just fiction. Families bury things all the time. Secrets, abuses, mistakes. But like Thomas Ellery, those secrets often claw their way back. One of the most terrifying aspects of the story isn't the undead hand. It's the loss of direction. Once the narrator uncovers the grave, the cemetery shifts. The mausoleum is no longer where it was. Headstones tilt and crack. Paths disappear. The map of the world collapses. That's a brilliant use of psychological horror. When you can no longer trust your environment, you're truly alone. I've experienced that, not just in that cemetery in Maine, but during a sleep paralysis episode once, where my own bedroom felt foreign and wrong. The same technique appears in horror classics like Silent Hill, and even films like The Blair Witch Project. Disorientation is dread. The mind craves order, and when it's denied that, panic sets in. Another effective element is the ghost girl in white. On the surface, she's a trope, a common symbol in ghost stories. But here, she serves as both a guide and a warning. She tells the narrator, he was meant to be forgotten. Now he knows. That line gave me chills, because it suggests something even worse than ghosts. It implies a balance, a supernatural contract that's been violated. By remembering Thomas, by acknowledging him, the narrator broke the seal. We often assume that remembering the dead is a good thing. But what if some people died with the intention of being erased? Let's talk about the shadow figure, the thing that rises from the grave not as a zombie, but as a distortion. It's described as too tall, too smooth, with no eyes or mouth. Just a hollow dent where a face should be. That's genius. Instead of humanizing the monster, the story dehumanizes it entirely. It becomes symbolic, a shape of what was lost, a representation of suppressed memory, of guilt with no name. The scariest part is that it speaks in the Great Tunkle's voice, which again ties into that theme. You don't just inherit traits, you inherit secrets. This figure is less of a ghost and more of a curse. It attaches itself to the living. It follows. It whispers. And like trauma, it doesn't need to touch you to ruin you. It just needs to be there, watching, waiting. The final paragraphs are what seal the story's impact. The narrator escapes the graveyard, but not the curse. That's important. Too many horror stories, and once the character leaves the haunted space. But here, the haunting comes home. The grandmother dies, her journal revealing the truth. The family knew about Thomas. They chose silence. And now, the narrator hears the whispers at night, beneath the floorboards. Again, metaphor and horror walk hand in hand. You can leave the place of trauma, but not the effects. They follow. They infest. They wait for moments of weakness. It's a deeply personal truth that rings loud in a horror setting.